Japanese pilots entered World War II believing one thing above everything else. Their Zero was untouchable. And for a long time they were right. The Mitsubishi A6M Zero was the finest carrier-based fighter in the world when the war began. Lightweight, incredibly agile, with a range no American fighter could match. Japanese pilots had trained for years in China before Pearl Harbor. They were confident, experienced, and deadly. American pilots facing the Zero for the first time were shocked. The Zero could outturn anything they had. It could climb faster. It could stay in the fight longer. Early American losses against the Zero were severe. The situation was serious enough that American commanders issued a direct order. Do not try to dogfight a Zero. If you do, you will lose. But America was already working on the answer. The Vought F4U Corsair was unlike anything Japan had seen. Its defining feature was immediately obvious: a massive inverted gull wing designed to fit the largest propeller ever placed on a fighter aircraft up to that point. A 13-foot, four-blade propeller driven by a 2,000-horsepower Pratt & Whitney double Wasp engine. It was big, it was powerful, and it was fast. The Corsair's top speed was approximately 417 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest propeller-driven fighters of the entire war. The Zero's top speed was around 331 miles per hour. That difference was not small. That difference was the entire fight. Japanese pilots saw the Corsair for the first time over the Solomon Islands in February 1943. Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 124 flew the first combat mission. What happened over the following months changed the Pacific Air War permanently. The Corsair could not outturn the Zero. American pilots knew this. They didn't try. Instead, they used speed and altitude. The tactic was called boom and zoom. Dive at full speed, fire, and climb away before the Zero pilot could react. By the time the Japanese pilot turned to engage, the Corsair was already climbing back up out of reach. The Zero pilot's greatest advantage, his ability to turn tightly, became useless against an opponent who simply refused to turn with him. Japanese pilots began reporting something they had never experienced before: an American fighter they could not catch. An American fighter that hit hard, dove away, and came back from above before they could recover. The psychological impact was real and documented. Japanese pilots who had spent years believing in their absolute superiority over American aircraft now faced something they genuinely feared. The numbers tell the story clearly. Over the course of the Pacific War, F4U Corsair pilots compiled a kill ratio of approximately 11-1 against Japanese aircraft. For every Corsair lost in air-to-air combat, 11 Japanese planes were destroyed. The Corsair flew from land bases and from aircraft carriers. It flew close air support missions, escort missions, and pure fighter sweeps. It was versatile in a way the Zero was not designed to be. The Japanese had built the Zero for one specific kind of war: fast, aggressive, hit hard, and move. The Zero was optimized for that fight and nothing else. When the fight changed, the Zero had no answer. The Corsair had answers for everything. By 1944 and into 1945, Japanese naval aviation was being systematically destroyed. The experienced pilots who had attacked Pearl Harbor, who had dominated the early Pacific Air War, were gone. Replacements were younger, less trained, and flying aircraft that could not match what America was putting in the sky. The F4U Corsair remained in production longer than any other American piston-engine fighter, continuing to be built until 1952. It served in Korea. It served in conflicts through the 1960s in Central America. Other fighters came and went. The Corsair kept flying. Japan built the Zero to own the Pacific sky. They trained their best pilots to master it. They believed it was enough. Then the Corsair showed up over the Solomon Islands on a February morning in 1943. It was not enough. It was never enough again.